For most of my life, I believed happiness was something to aim for, like a destination, like a reward for doing things right. I thought if I chose the right person, the right path, the right version of myself, happiness would eventually settle in and stay. But at some point in life, that belief just kind of fell apart. So there was a time when I believed happiness lived outside of me, in romance, in being chosen, and being understood in the way I wanted to be understood. But I began to notice that the moments I called happy were always fragile, and they always depended on something working out, on someone staying, on the future behaving the way I wanted it to. And then when those conditions changed, as they always do, that happiness did not just fade. It turned into anxiety, it turned into loss, it turned into fear. And what surprised me wasn't that things ended. What surprised me was how much energy I had spent in trying to secure this pleasant feeling. And like every person in the world, I was conditioned to believe that happiness is the ultimate goal, the summum bonum of life. So all of us are taught, without ever being told, that happiness is always out there. It's something that's external. So then if you just arrange the external conditions just correctly, everything will fall into place and you have happiness. And every single human person who's ever lived, is living, and will ever live equates happiness to pleasant experiences, and that's undeniable. So we chase versions of ourselves, we chase versions of the future, we chase other people. And then what happens is that we fail to realize that there is danger in chasing happiness, not because it's bad, but because it cannot give you any sort of refuge. This moment, as it is never enough. So what we call happiness is just a momentary pleasant feeling. And pleasant feelings by default are just conditions, and conditions by their intrinsic nature change. So think about it. This is where the chasing begins. We chase happiness believing that these moments can stabilize us, that they're stable. But the very thing that we're chasing is unstable. Happiness arises when things line up in our favor, and it disappears when they don't. Now, that does not make happiness bad. I'm not saying that happiness is evil. I'm not anti-happiness. I'm not a killjoy. But it just makes happiness unreliable. Once I saw that mechanism, of how happiness works, and most importantly, how it fails, I just stopped organizing my life around a feeling that cannot stay. I didn't stop chasing happiness because I was cynical or, I lost the capacity to feel. I just stopped because I was honest. I was honest with myself of how much pressure I was putting in my life just to feel okay. I was honest about how exhausting it was just to secure this pleasant feeling and trying to protect these feelings from change. And I realized that happiness was never meant to be chased. It's just something that you're meant to observe, something that comes and goes. I've started to realize that whatever experience that you have, no matter how beautiful it is, it cannot offer you any lasting refuge. And for me, this profound realization did not just happen dramatically. It did not come suddenly. It was not like a quick snap of a finger, a sudden awakening. It came slowly, and through patiently and consistently watching my mind over a year, and how it craves, how it clings, how it fantasizes, how it spins entire narratives out of a single momentary feeling. So I stopped chasing happiness because I know what it costs and I know what it leads to. What replaced happiness for me then? For me, at least in my experience, what replaced happiness for me was the stability. But it's not the kind of stability that comes from everything going well, but it's the kind of stability that remains when things don't. I could feel disappointment without falling apart. I could feel longing without acting on it. I could remember the past without trying to relive it or fix it. So what replaced happiness for me was just clarity. And seeing things as they truly are, I just stopped allowing emotions to run the show, and I just became the observer. And ironically, when you stop chasing happiness, joy still remains, but it's lighter. You know, it doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't threaten you when it leaves. It comes, it goes, and you don't end up panicking over these things. I no longer expect feelings to save me. And that expectation, that quiet release of pressure, has changed everything. And this is why the Buddha's teachings are so profound, because the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings, it doesn't ask you to be happy precisely for this reason. It asks you to be alert, to be awake, to be mindful, so that when the vicissitudes of life visit you, which they will, you know, all these winds of grief and loss and change and pain, when they visit you, when they blow in your direction, you won't be blown away. I want to end this video by saying that I no longer have the illusion that happiness is the summum bonum of life, that it can offer lasting refuge, and that it is something that everybody should chase. It does not mean that I reject life. It just means that I stop demanding life be a certain way for me to be okay with it. And in that stopping, something far more reliable than happiness appears. It's not excitement, it's not pleasure, but a quiet peace and freedom that doesn't need to be defended.